I love that I love your work with astrology. Like, I'm not personally an astrology girly, but guys, Tenae is the one that has gotten me very much more interested because she called a couple of things in my life that were going to happen and they fucking happened. And it was a hard time, but I can't say I wasn't prepared, and that blew my fucking mind. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about astrology. Um, so first of all, okay, I have to ask this first. So first of all, I don't know when this is going to air, but man, word on the streets is that 2025 is going to be a little bit of something. And so I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on, I know that's kind of a loaded question. Like, can you please give me a forecast for 2025? But like, where is that kind of coming from?
Yes. So starting as we're recording this, Pluto
Yes,
has just entered Aquarius. So whenever
yesterday.
it comes out,
Yeah.
Pluto will still be there. So very relevant. So starting mid-November through 2024 through about July 2025, as an astrologer, I have never seen so many transits, so many massive transits in such a short period of time. Like I'm not I never want to be the like fear-mongering astrologer. And I actually don't think that it needs to be like a fearful thing, but there is like big fucking change. Like that's the main thing that I know. I don't know exactly because it's so many. I'm like, I can look at the individual things and talk about them, but I'm like, so many things are happening at the same time that I'm like, I don't actually know what that level of change really looks like in reality. But basically, what's happening is between November and July, every single outer planet, so Jupiter through Pluto, every single one of them is changing signs. As well as the nodes, which are they have to do with eclipses. So our eclipses are changing signs. And every single personal planet, so Mercury, Venus, and Mars, will all be retrograde at some point during that time. It's sort of, it's like I've never, it's so much. So the big picture is really big change, right? Change in like not necessarily every area of life, but like um, I don't like every area of society almost, right? Like things are on a personal level, like things are changing in our relationships, things are changing around like what we feel really passionate about. But on the collective level, which because a lot of it is very collective, on the collective level, we're having a lot of change in just like if this feels so generic to say, but like change in society, right? Like the way that we look at maybe money, the way we look at like social justice, like the way we look at community, right? A lot of these things, and the way we look at like the individual within community is really starting to shift. And 2025 is going to be like the impetus of that. It's not necessarily going to be, I mean, it definitely won't be overnight change, but it's not necessarily going to be like okay, we know exactly what the change looks like now that July has come and gone because a lot of that is going to be like shifting back and forth. But 2025 is going to give us a really good look at like what those changes might actually look like in reality. So I feel like it's one of those things where I'm like, it's too big to even try to like really put into words and articulate. But on a personal level, most of the transits, almost all of the big transits that are happening between Pisces, well, through the signs, Pisces, Aries, um, really Gemini, Cancer, and Leo. So those are like the big signs where things are changing the most.
Mhm.
Especially Pisces and Aries
Oh,
is having a lot of big change. So if you have, you know, your sun, your moon, your rising sign, things like that in those signs, then it's going to feel particularly personal versus, you know, if you have like, I don't know, what's one of the other signs? If you have
uh,
like Sagittarius
yeah,
rising, maybe it's not going to be as potent, but it will still be on a collective level, right?
right.
So if you have things in those particular signs, you'll feel it the most. But I think as a society, we're going to be feeling it.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it necessarily needs to be all bad. I mean, every day is bad and good for different people and different reasons all over the world, right? And so I think we clearly all more or less are on the same page that the way human shit works right now is probably not the best. And we probably shit the bed on several levels. And um, so, there can be a little bit of fear, but also a little bit of hope or excitement for, new paradigms are not born in times that are very easy and peaceful and simple. And so, yes, that does suck on one level, but on another level, if you zoom out a little bit, it's like, well, I mean, maybe we need to grit our teeth and really do re-examine the way that things work, the way that we live, the ideas and beliefs we have about ourselves and each other, and how we fit together as part of a coherent system, right? Which is really, I think the witches are obviously leading the charge there, just on the pure fact that that's kind of a very witchy thing, is to try and think of yourself as part of a larger system rather than somebody that is imposing their will upon everything around them, right? So not that witches don't use their will to make change happen, but I just mean more in the sense of like taking care of each other, being a part of this planet, all of that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely a lot of the big themes that are happening, right? Because we have Pluto moving into Aquarius, which is all about totally like burning down so many things in society, but like burning down the way we look at community and like finding community to be much more transformative and powerful than we've allowed it to be in more recent years. But then we also have a lot of things going into Aries as well. I mean, we have Neptune and Saturn will both move into Aries, and Mercury and Venus will both be retrograde there. So we have a lot of things happening in this energy that's all about individuality and passion and, the person, which I think in some ways will help balance the Aquarius piece, right? Because community is so important. And also we don't want anyone to get lost in the shuffle, right? In the whole. But there's also, I think, going to be a very like big tension between like being an individual and being a part of the collective. And I think that is very witchy. And I think that it's definitely not going to be super comfortable, I think, because it is a certain amount of tension, right? There's some friction there, but I think it's giving us the opportunity, like, okay, well, how can we sort that out, right? How can we be individuals within the collective rather than, swaying so hard to one side or the other?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I think for where we're at and kind of the desires you can see in the collective of like what we would prefer versus, whenever you're in a situation where something is not working, um it's such a beautiful way to get clarity, because you can at least say like, at least not this. Like, at least I know that this is a full body fuck no. So it's like it can provide some free up some mental space to start imagining, dreaming, creating, getting clarity on what it is that you would want, right?
So true. So, so true.
Yeah. So if in the next year, okay, so say over the next year, things are kind of tumultuous. People are going through these transits, trying to find their way. Would you have like one kind of brief or super helpful practice that you could recommend for people when it comes to trying to navigate self-care during times like that?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely find that working with the cycles is so helpful when things feel very chaotic and very like out of your own control, right? Where it's like, whether there's like some things you can focus on that are like, I can control this thing, so I'm going to put my energy there, or it just feels like there's absolutely nothing that you can control, right? Which I think that in times like we're currently living in, a lot of times it does feel like, okay, the big picture, maybe I don't have a lot of control over it, right? Or any. But I think that the cycles, it's almost like they don't give us a semblance of control because we don't have any control over them either, but they're so grounding, right? It's like, okay, we see the shifts from one season to the next. And we see the shifts from one moon phase to the next. And even, if you get into the astrology and you look at like the big picture of these cycles, right? Like when was the last time that each of these planets was in these signs? And you see these like really long-term cycles, right? I think that working with the cycles, whether it's, journaling, doing ritual around them, or even if it's literally just like looking outside and being like, oh, it's winter now. Okay. Oh, it's spring now. Okay. Right. Like, I think that can be so deeply grounding because it is this kind of like almost like promise from the universe, right? Even though our seasons are changing and that's not always really great. Nonetheless, right, there are still seasons in some ways, even if they look different than they did when we were kids, right? Like as we're recording this, we're having like a historic storm. Like my whole town might be flooded. I don't know. We'll see what happens the next few days. That's not normal. So, like I think that a lot of times when we talk about the seasons being grounding, we're like, well, what about climate change? It's like, yes, okay, that's a very real thing. And it is, they might look different, but we can still notice what those changes are, right? And we can still notice, it's just so much about awareness and noticing, right? And I think that that can be very, very grounding because I don't know, it is this like oxymoron because it's like, well, we don't have any control over it. And that is somehow comforting in a way. I don't know. That's my big thing is whenever I'm like out of, just like off the axis, like coming back to the seasons, coming back to the moon is always my big thing.
That's phenomenal advice. One of totally a side note, but one of the most impactful dreams I ever had was I was at the top of the hill and I was with a few people and we had those like fold up chairs and we like folded them up, sat and watched the moon was coming and colliding with the earth. And it was the mood of the dream was very kind of apocalyptic and like terrifying a little bit, but mostly it was like awe. I was in awe. And it was funny because after that dream was so impactful. And after that, I was trying to like unpack, like, why is it like really staying in my awareness for so long? And I realized that seeing the moon move was the part of the dream because it caused this cognitive dissonance about this thing that is always there and does the same things being acting in an unpredictable or shocking way, and it like for some reason even as a dream it just broke something in there and it still is there like pretty much constantly, that feeling of like I can't process what I'm seeing even though it wasn't a real thing. So I think that you're completely right. There's these things where it's they can provide a grounding energy, not even just for us being in this lifetime now, but like for humanity, we have been looking at the seasons, at the stars, at the cosmic cycles, even astrology for so long that there is an element of predictability there, or an element of like, well, at least I kind of understand or know what happens when you see these plants start to die and these plants start to come up and like things like that, which really helps you interface with your life not only in a like mindful and present way, but it also is like, oh, I am part of this system, right? I am a conscious part of this system.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's such an important piece, right? That like, yes, it's very grounding and very mindful, right? To like know what's going on around you. And that can help with so many different things you might be feeling, right? But it is also that like we are a part of nature, right? We exist within these phases, within these seasons, within these cycles. And not only do they affect us, but like we just are inherently a part of them. And I think that starting to really have an awareness of that and also like on the next level, like really pay attention to how they're affecting you and like how you feel when the moon is in certain signs or when certain seasons come along, like I think being able to take care of yourself by knowing how you're probably going to feel and be able to set yourself up to, take care of yourself through whatever that feeling is, I think is really, really powerful information. That's such a huge part of what I do. But I also think that just knowing that like you have full and total permission from nature to be in whatever part of the cycle you're in, and even these like overlapping cycles, right? It's just like, okay, I don't have control over that thing, but I get to be here because this is where I am.
Oh, that's so amazing. I love that. That's such a great way to look at it. And it is so grounding and it is nice to know that like a lot of the chaos we're seeing is human chaos. And there is so much outside of that that we can kind of use as a touchstone.
Definitely, yeah.